Good afternoon. Wow, you made it this far, right? I'm hanging in there. I arrived at the building at 5 a.m. this morning, so I'm hanging in there. Oh, this is good. This is a nice, I like it, nice panel. All right, everybody, so this panel, here's our first panel up here in the Great Hall today. And this panel concerns the Nashua Riverfront. Just looked at it on our bus tour, just out there, and some of the historic Moore Airfield. Okay? Just want to talk about that a little bit. And man, do we have the panel here? You know, this is the 18. Okay, so happy to that. Neil Angus, of course, Devens Enterprise Commission. And Neil, now the full title is it Sustainability?
Environmental Plan.
It's Environmental Plan. And I think it's public knowledge now that Neil will be, our good friend, my dear friend of many years, Peter Lowick, will be retiring, and Neil will be elevating up and taking place. That makes us feel very, very good in there. All right. Laurie Neary, of course. Laurie, now listen, people
of Ayer.
Here, concerned about the environment. What is your title with the organization?
I'm the president.
You are the president of it. How long has PACE existed? When was it established?
It became active in 1999, 1997.
Wow.
And I've been involved since.
And was it an outgrowth of the base, the decommission of the base?
Yes, it was. It was so that the town of Ayer could accept a technical assistance grant to manage this Superfund site. That happens.
Okay. Next, Jess, and I know the last name, she just said me with my last name.
Gugino.
It's Gugino, of course. Jess Gugino. Where do I begin with Jess? Jess is one of our outstanding residents in civic service. I mean, Conservation Commission in the past. We're still current. Zoning Board of Appeals. Community Preservation, maybe? Okay. Am I missing anything? Okay, all right.
That's it.
Jess, talk about someone that has her hand on the pulse of the community. And so what I'm just now, Martha Morgan is with the National River Watershed Association. And I'm sorry, your position with the association?
Water Programs Director.
Water Programs Director. Like I say, I got a little bit of credit. I was on the board of directors of the NRA 27 years ago, maybe. I was with the city of Nashua a long time ago. Love the NRA. And, how do we say it? I can't, the words out of it. Okay, so Marion Stoddard. Marion Stoddard is the founder of the National River Watershed Association. And the mother to all of us who've been involved with the National River and for years. And I met Marion probably, 25, 30 years ago, many years ago. But Marion is married. That's all we need to say. Right? Old. Are you old? You're also saying you're getting old. I mean, you're getting old. Okay. So this panel that we did now, a few of us, actually quite a few of us, we were just out on the bus tour, looking at the National Riverfront, which I say, and I love saying to people here, we're a riverfront town, but we don't feel like we're a riverfront town. So, why don't you all just, how about this? Let's go down the line. 3 minutes, say what you feel you'd like to share with the folks about the National River, the airport, its future, its whatever. Can we do this? Go right down the line? Okay? Go. 3 minutes. Neil Evans.
All right, time me this time, all right?
No, we're good.
So North Post currently, it is zoned as a special use district, which basically light industrial type activities are allowed. The airfield sits on a high plateau, level area on a high plateau, very steep slopes surrounding it. We actually have a slope resource protection area that is zoned all the way around the river side of the airfield, and that helps protect those steep slopes from any future development. The river corridor itself at the base of the airfield is actually part of the Oxbow National Wildlife Refuge. So that riverfront area, sorry Alan, but I don't think it's ever going to be able to be fully developed for any economic or
I think you're
industrial business type uses, but it is an economic generator from a recreation and
yes. Ecotourism?
Ecotourism. We are in the process of blazing a new trail through that area right now with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, the town of Ayer, and Devens. But back up to the top of the plateau, the airfield, lots of contamination issues to still deal with. I'm sure Lori's going to get into a lot of that in her talk, but there's ongoing remediation at the site. There's currently some uses. The state police utilize the runway, the former runways, for high-speed vehicle training for police. There is toll testing going on up there by Raytheon for high-speed toll testing, but very limited uses because of the existing contamination. And there is also some endangered species habitat up there as well too. The grasshopper sparrow resides in the low-lying vegetation in these open meadow areas. They love these areas like that are mowed around airfields. So there's some endangered species issues to deal with too.
Very good. Thank you. Lori?
I have the time that you didn't.
Sure.
So I've been involved with the environmental issues for quite a long time. So is Julie Cornsworth in our audience. And Frank, you were in the original stages of this as well. I'd like to touch base on these contamination issues. Those of you who are on the bus tour, you already heard some of this. But I'd like to highlight a couple of things. Just looking at just the airfield, as Neil just indicated, there are still contamination issues, some of which were just discovered in the last few years, which we believe are quite serious. This has to do mainly with the forever chemical that we're all hearing a lot about. PFAS has been located there. In this case, the PFAS came from when the Fort Devens had its fire department. They would practice putting out the carcass of an old airplane that was in kind of a low area, in a certain area in the airfield. It's about a couple hundred feet from the Nashua River. To give you an idea of the scale of this contamination, you may know that we're allowed to have in our drinking water up to 20 parts per trillion of a combination of 6 different PFAS chemicals. Now we're learning that there are thousands of these chemicals in the world. Various industries are using this really innovative product because it has so many wonderful characteristics. It makes these stain-proof and waterproof and grease-proof. And we're all probably have it in our bodies. You may be wearing it right now without realizing it. It's in not many products. But in comparison to this 20 parts per trillion that was now allowed to be in our drinking water, some organizations feel that's even too much. The amount that's in the groundwater where they were practicing is 32,000 something parts per trillion. 32,400, I think is the number. It's in my report right here. So yes, this is a great concern. We don't know right now how to resolve this. It doesn't seem to break down by any means with the exception of burning it, incinerating it at a very high temperature. So that's a really strong bond between the fluoride and the carbon, and that's what makes it such a unique chemical. And so we have that. The other contamination issue that we have known about for a really long time is getting resolved. I think we believe it will be resolved, and that's stemming from when the parachutes used to be dry cleaned at the base. If you drive on the street that goes to Shirley, what is that called? We just drove on it.
Route 2,
Route 2,
Road.
Fitchburg Road. Just beyond the bend in the road past the grocery store on your left, there's a tall building with no windows. That's where they used to dry clean parachutes. And they used to use trichloroethylene, which is dry cleaning solvent. If you know anything about chlorinated solvents, we know they're very toxic. Very large amounts of that were released into the soil inadvertently. It wasn't discovered until after the Superfund status was established at Devens. And so it has been remediated, and it's close to being complete. But it was a really big issue. The plume was something like a mile and a half long, heading right toward the river. We believe it was getting in the river, but that problem is going to be addressed. So we're focusing really on the PFAS problem, which is going to be really tough. So let's envision we take back the airfield. We just drove on it. It's a very large area. Many of you can envision all kinds of great things happening there, but we need to address the fact that we will be taking on whatever happens with that pretty serious contamination issue. Some of you are going to say things like, well, the Army will always be responsible for it. Probably. Will it be easy? No. We have had to work so hard with the Army over all these years to make them do the right thing. They are constantly trying to back out of things that are hard. We can give you lots of examples of this. EPA has had to, on numerous occasions, sue the Army to follow through on what they promised they would do through the Superfund CERCLA process. So, I'm going to retire soon. I'm not going to be doing this forever. I don't see many people at these meetings. How many of us are realistically going to keep the Army's feet to the fire and continue on with this, making the Army do the right thing? How many of you are going to read these reports that we don't even get anymore because the Army's refusing to give us the earlier reports? We only get the final drafts, and we don't even really know what they're doing until it's pretty much too late. That's just happened. We used to get all the reports. My house is filled with these reports. Yours is too. Your creation. So take all of that into consideration that where Army Airfield is contaminated. Shepley's Hill landfill also has contamination issues with arsenic. Do we want to take on the Superfund status? Does Ayer want to become a town that owns a Superfund site? I really think we need to consider all of that when we look at this important issue.
Excellent. That just it shows you that it's all up front seems very good. Like, of course we want all this. Of course we want. So thank you. Start feeling down and say you really prepared to manage, to have you have the capacity to be able to say, Laurie, thank you for just that good overview because of the reality of the complexity that you're dealing with at things like the United States military and such. So all right. Jess, what are your just thoughts and feelings about this? The future of the Riverfront, the Airfield? Yes, thank you.
Yeah, well, I mean, our Conservation Commission this past year finished putting up signage on our waterways and in the glacial stream. We weren't able to put up identifying signage on throughout the Nashua River because of the federal status of the Owensboro, and also the state status on 2A. But, all of this, looking at our chain of ponds, it was very clear that what happens on Long Pond or Sandy Pond or Flanagan Pond and all down ultimately goes into the Nashua River. So we were very concerned with that. Now, in terms of taking back the airfield and along the river site, I tend to probably be inclined to support that, but Lori has just given me a whole bunch of things to start rethinking. So,
how it works.
That's how it works. So, I mean, on one side, I tend to think, okay, maybe in the future we'll be better at dealing with these things. I don't know. It would be a big decision, and I think everything that Lori's just raised has to be taken into great account. So, thank you, Lori. I would ask, how deep is the toxic plume underneath? Still looking at it.
It's sunny, so it's
The depth of it. Right. We know the direction of it. We know which way it's migrating and all.
well, we're still trying to understand that.
Yes. But it is obviously migrating towards the river. It will.
But I tend to think of that space as well. There's a lot of interest in town for like a community center, especially for youth. It's like, could that area be used for something like that? It wouldn't be housing per se, but so I mean, I think I like to think of the possibilities of future, and maybe it is worse than this, but like you say, maybe have to have the town think seriously about all the issues and arrange for taking care of the Superfund negotiations. Take that out. Thank you.
All right. So good, Jess. Another great. I just love the diversity perspectives on this. We all think, or everyone thinks the same thing about this, and now, there's a great, range of sense of what this is. Martha Morgan from the Nashua River Watershed Association. What's here today? What do you think?
Well, that plateau that is the Airfield is known as a glacial outwash plain. So there's a good 70 or 80 feet of sand. It's very sandy kind of material. And as you know, Lori said, you don't know how deep that flows. And I know that Eric, you all probably know how long it's taken the Army to work on all of these other issues that they have around town. They're only just starting to do the investigation of the PFAS, at the airfield. They've done a good job of working on the PCB, that is the perchloroethylene that was a result of the parachutes that clean there. The plume has gotten smaller. They've treated that. But I know I used to work in Superfund projects. They take a really long time to do the investigation and then try to develop a remediation for something like that is going to take even longer because you really are still learning about PFAS issues, like how you can clean it up. And they don't really know. From my point of view, I think the river obviously is a wonderful asset. And we don't know how much of this PFAS is reaching the river. But we do have this buffer between the airfield and the river of the oxbow. I don't know how far around it goes, but I do like the idea, as Neil said, of passive recreation. If it's possible when they complete the cleanup, and we don't know if that's going to happen in another 10 years, but to have passive recreation up there, to enjoy maybe a view of the river, look at the birds, the wildlife, and things like that. I don't really envision industry or business or things up there for quite some time, and hopefully not at all, but that's my view. And I think Mary will have something to say about that as well. But it's just it takes a long time to do that kind of remediation. And in order to protect the public in the future, they probably would require to do nothing that does any kind of excavation of any of that kind of material for any kind of building or anything like that. They would probably put a restriction on those kind of properties.
There are currently restrictions on the airfield that they can't change the drainage patterns in any way, so no real additional new buildings, no additional impervious surface, because they don't want to create additional runoff that may redirect the contamination plumes in another direction. So there is restrictions currently, and that'll probably be in place for a while.
Could I ask who supervises those restrictions? Is that the Devens that who impose those restrictions?
So those restrictions are imposed by the Army and the federal government on the contamination issues.
Did you all hear that question? Could just that question.
Yeah, my question was who imposed the restrictions? So
Who imposed the restrictions?
So if the town were to take it over, where do those restrictions come from that the town would have to keep in mind?
Joint agreements between the Army, the EPA, the DEP, and Mass Development are all responsible agencies. And the base closure team is the group that takes care of that. And we don't permit any type of, as the regulatory and permitting authority for the Devens Regional Enterprise Zone, we don't authorize any development that will increase the impervious surface coverage or change the drainage characteristics of there.
So if Air got this property back, we would take on that role of not allowing any development.
Assuming you took back jurisdiction?
Yes.
Yeah, it would be subject, to our regulatory boards. Yeah. And that's why, folks, one of the things, we completed our last municipal master plan in 2017. It was 2017. You should do a good municipal master plan, every 7 to 10 years, 2 years, something like that. So right, we start our next master plan. Now probably about 3 years or so, 3 or 4. Maybe we have to integrate into that. Do we have the capacity? Our regulatory boards, if we were to get the land back, how would we plan for that, to have that capacity to manage that, right? So that's it. All right. And I want to get married, then I want to open it up quickly, just if we have a little questions back and forth. Mary, what do you think about all this right now? What do you think?
Well, I moved the flowers, I can't see her.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Well, I think that we have a great opportunity to enlarge, increase the Yellowstone National Wildlife Refuge.
To enlarge the refuge itself, actually, yes.
And to enlarge the greenways. So the goal of the Nashua River Watershed Association is to create a greenway along the whole length of the Nashua River and its major tributaries, Swanaka, Mississippi River, and tributaries to those streams. And so our goal is to protect at least a minimum of 300 feet back.
300 feet back from the riverfront, the shoreline.
Right. And so when I first moved to this area, which was back in 1965, the Nashua River then was considered one of the 10 most polluted rivers in the United States.
You all hear that? It was one of the top 10 most polluted rivers in the United States.
Right. And I always felt the most challenging thing to do was, and the most important thing to do first was to protect the land along the river rather than initially working to restore the river. I thought it would be easier to restore the river than to protect the river from pollution. So Fort Devens played a really major role in helping us create the Greenway, and this was when General Cushman was the commanding officer here between 1968 and 1970, and when the river was considered one of the 10 most polluted rivers in the country. And General Cushman, I never met him. In fact, I'd never even been to Fort Devens.
I'll just say this is General Cushman, she's saying. Mary shared this whole history with me just last week in my office. I thought I knew the history of the river, and I had never, there was this commandant at that time that sort of encouraged to launch the river, the watershed, the river association cleanup. Sorry, I don't want to continue this. I had no idea this is.
So General Cushman told me that Fort Devens had investigators to the cleanup of the river. He said 8.2 miles of the Nashua River flow through the fort. He said, what can I do to help? And so I made an appointment to see him the following week, and I made a long list of things that I felt that he could do to help us. And at that time, we were just the National River Cleanup Committee, was just citizens group. And I'd never been to Fort Devens before. I visited his office, and he gave me everything on my list and more. He gave us T-2608, which was a temporary housing building on Devens. And I was learned later that building will be used to house lots of prisoners during the war. He gave us a building, and he gave us staff, and the staff he gave us were just amazingly competent people. And some of these people had been wounded in Vietnam and were being treated at the hospital and receiving that care. And these were professional engineers. One of the people who I'm still in close contact with, Lieutenant Devens Rosado, had worked with the Park Service before he was wounded in Vietnam. He was assigned to work with us, and we had many other competent men and women assigned to work with us. He gave us also, inside the building, he gave us the heat, the electricity, the telephone service. He gave us a vehicle, and he really set us up in business. And so So he also encouraged us to form a watershed association. And at the same time, he, at Devens, created a conservation committee, and he signed his, Colonel Donahue, who was his right-hand man, to be in charge of that committee. And the post forester, Bob Mott, was assigned to work with us. I mean, it was just amazing. And he also created a greenway along both sides of the Nashua River in Devens. And
Who was this General Cushing?
this is General Cushing.
My goodness.
And
Goodness.
subsequently, I mean, every commanding officer at Fort Devens provided assistance to us. They had a secretary named Elder Fisher, who lived in Leominster. And so when commanding officer would take often, like every couple of years or so, and so as soon as one commanding officer would leave, I would go to visit the next commanding officer during the headed, and each wanted to outdo the other lighting services. And so we also had a program which received a great deal of attention, and it was a program to clean up our riverbanks called Project Curve. And there we had, there was 13 Green Berets that were assigned to work with us. And we were able to be sure to provide employment on environmental projects for high school dropouts from all traditional schools. And we had a person from Pittsburgh State College and Vancouver Society, who was in charge of recreation at Pittsburgh State, to be in charge of this project. And we worked with the conservation commissions in all the towns, the State Fish and Wildlife, with other conservation organizations to come up with projects along the river, the trash along the river, and building bridges. And it was very, very successful.
Let me do this, Harry. And again, this history, I'm glad we're all here, especially to listen to Marion, share this. I did not know that history between the base and the river and the towns. We're lucky we all just got to hear this from her. We can carry it through our lives now. Remember, we heard it from Marion here today. Let me do this. The next panel is going to start. We're going to go a little over, because I can do that. Okay. I just want to, now, are there any just questions, comments from all of you? Just any saying, hey, I want to bring this up, Al, or I want to ask this. Here are the folks. What do you all feel and think? Right now is the time to say, hey. Anything? What, are you all getting tired now? Is it late in the day? Come on, the energy level. Yes, sir. Want to choose a regional planning commission?
It's just a very general comment, but I think the river is so significant, never mind its importance and, importance of water and habitat and those things, but just think about rivers being a connector and thinking how the river itself connects all of the different towns. And when you're talking about bringing back together a portion of the town that used to be, and the river happens to flow between the two of them, I don't think there's anything more symbolic than the river itself. So thinking about ways to frame the discussion, the conversation, the significance of things, certainly a lot of it should focus around, it sounds like it already is, around the Nashua River. The potential for greenway corridors and pathways and blue trails, canoe kayak trails, and things like that. So I think it's awesome.
And I'll just make this observation, because I know 30 years ago in Lowell, we started working on the Concord River in downtown Lowell, started building our greenway pathways. I think of the Merrimack River in Lowell, the boulevard. My observation about it, I just got this reinforced when I was out there today at the bus store. I'm thinking, why aren't people like disconnected from the riverfront area? You can only access, the only way to connect to that riverfront is in a vehicle right now. It's a roadway with guardrails on each side of it. I think you can't even walk out there with it. I mean, safely. And I just started realizing that. So you know, and there's no one even pull over in a car. Even like want to just stop and turn the riverfront. I just want to look at that mirror. Well, look, it's like you couldn't even. So the whole thing is designed like both. Like it's just so maybe that's tomorrow. And by the way, tomorrow, all this converts into a design studio. We're laying out all the big maps of the riverfront stuff with our trace paper. And I know what I'm doing already in my head. I'm saying, why is there not a green one walking? We could start making that happen.
That's what
we are.
So,
We should have done this.
we actually got a grant through the Wild and Scenic River Organization, partnering with the town of Ayer to construct about a quarter-mile long trail from the intersection of Bailey Road and McPherson Road that will extend Bishop, Bailey Bridge. Let me just orient you guys here. So Airfield, all of the other green you see on this map is Oxbow National Wildlife Refuge. So large wetland system between the river and the airfield, and as I mentioned, very steep slopes all the way along the edge here. So all those slopes are currently protected. Bishop Road right here turns into McPherson Road here. Right at the intersection of Bishop Road and McPherson Road, there's a small road that goes up here, and there used to be a bridge that crossed the river that the Army constructed. It's called the Bailey Bridge. That's since been taken down to poor condition. But right from that area, the landing, there's a Hunter parking lot area. We're constructing a trail about a quarter-mile long, all the way along the trail, along the river, to provide Ayer and Devens folks recreational access to this area. As Alan said, it's a car-centric area. You have to drive to get there, but it would be Ayer's first real formal access to the river, right?
We don't.
And
now you're going to highlight us with your Earth Day. You have a big
so
Earth Day.
that was my next point. Was on April 21st, Friday, the day before Earth Day, we're doing what we did last year with the town of Ayer, which is closing down McPherson Road. You know, McPherson Road is subject to flooding, and it closes periodically. So we're going to be closing it down, opening it up to people to come and recreate, walk, bike, hike, scoot, wheel, whatever. Bring your self-propelled vehicles only to this event. Closing down the whole road, and we're hoping to be able to highlight this trail that we hope to have roughed in by then. And we're also doing the pollinator meadow down there. But the whole idea is bringing this area to people's attention and reconnecting Ayer to the waterfront along the river. Working with the Ayer DPW to potentially look at, possible bike lanes at some point. But we have to work with the Air Fish and Wildlife as well too, because they own this whole corridor and the road. So just wanted to orient you guys.
We also did kayak access from here, and I think they determined that it was too steep in that area to actually have canoe and kayak access.
Yeah, we wanted to put a photo launch at the old Bailey Road Bridge abutment, but it's very steep and it's not safe for access. But that's where the trail's going to originate. So we're going to be having interpretive signage there. So we'll be parking, bike racks in the future.
How about a zip line into the river?
What across the river?
Let's do it. All right, we can keep going. What I see now, it's almost 10 past the next panel. It's supposed to start at 3:15. See, it's great stuff. It all goes too fast. Anyone want to make any powerful last statements as we wrap it up?
The other side of the river is Shirley, yes?
Yes.
Is it Shirley in the future, or is it Shirley now?
It's Devens. It's part of the Devens Regional Enterprise Zone now.
No.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a historic boundary of Shirley.
Okay. Are you looking at building a trail on the other side of the river, or is there?
So it's a great esker loop there that exists right now.
Esker.
Yeah. So there's Farms, if you're familiar with Walker Road. So there's trails all, if you take the wastewater treatment plant access road, there's a whole loop of trails there for the daily emergencies to connect.
Great trails on the
Mary,
outside.
you want me to, let's hold up. Let's
So I just say that there are a lot of values associated with protecting land along the river. I mean, recreation is certainly an important one, but it's also to prevent pollution from occurring along the access to buffer. And when the Oxford National Wildlife Refuge was established, it was really established in good part because it's such an important area for migratory birds.
Yes.
And so it's very important. And so there's, and very important to have trees and other kinds of vegetation along the river. And to increase that amount of protected acreage is important too for carbon sink.
Yes.
And it's trees along the river provide shade for the river to keep it cool for fish. And there's so many different values to having the land protected along the river.
Now that was the perfect way, right? So then this failed. Mary, thank you. This is actually cool. Our next panel is going to be meat, and we're on the bus tour, and we're up with beautiful Almond Street neighborhood and Bay Street. Next panel, I see they're here. We're going to meet our Almond Street, Bay Street, and other neighbors up at Devens. So if you want, if you guys, they're going to jump right in, because that panel starts in 4 minutes.
Hey,
Bravo.
Alan, before we just hold on, just one thing, if you're attending tomorrow and think about design and look at the future of the Airfield B, one of the things you have to think about is access. Right now, the only access to the North Coast is from the way you guys came in on the bus tour on Fishburg Road. It's a large area for one point of access. There is an emergency access onto Bishop Road and McPherson, but as that road floods and is closed on occasion, it's not a reliable second means of egress. So when you're thinking about redevelopment of this, if you want to take it back and redevelop it,